I love rodents, and for my next adventure in teaching myself animal sculpture, I'm sculpting my first guinea pigs. I'd like my little piggies to be about that big. After looking up the average size of a guinea pig and sprinkling in a little math magic, my 2-inch piggies will be 1/6 scale. References are my best friends in the sculpting adventure, and this time I had the fun of taking pics and photos in an ag fair, which I'm using to help guide the shape of my aluminum foil armatures. I'm using a mix of beige and gray Super Sculpey polymer clays, which I usually pre-mix so I can condition and start sculpting quickly. The beige is very soft and pliable. The gray is firm and holds detail nicely. Mixing them gives me the best of both. When I'm applying clay in thin layers, I'm making sure to press firmly so I don't trap any air between the clay and the foil. Trapped air pockets will expand in the oven, making permanent bubbles in my sculpture, so I try to avoid that. When I'm working in the early stages of a sculpture, I'm thinking first about the profile of the animal and its width second. Profile first, volume second. I also think about those profiles when I'm taking my own reference photos, making sure I have some clear views of the side outline, then I take additional width photos to get a feel for the volume. I'm also thinking about shapes first, details second. It helps if I squint at my reference to see what simple shapes make up the form of the animal. What I see when I squint becomes the shape of the armature and the shape of the first layer of clay. See how a rodent shape is already starting to merge even though there are no details yet? That's the fun in working with shapes first. A little smoothing with a wax carving tool and my gloves is all that's needed to blend the forms before I add the eyes. The method I use is fairly common among sculptors, and it's just steel ball bearings in just the right size. Oh, that's a little creepy. Let me start blocking the shapes of the face so they stop staring at me. Nope, still creepy. Hold on a second. Aha, now that's starting to look like a guinea pig. Or at least, not so scary now. This is that moment when there is just enough form for the sculpture to start coming to life. I've talked before about how I'm on a journey to teach myself animal sculpture beyond horses. Or really just sculpture in general, seeing as most of my experience and knowledge comes from years of hobby sculpting and one 3-dimensional design course that was meant to be a primer for the sculpting courses I never took. So I'm basically attempting to make up for that missed opportunity and teach myself what I would have learned in those additional sculpting courses. Part of the journey of growing as an artist is just figuring out what techniques and processes you want to use most often and what you want your work to look like. Or in other words, developing a style. That learning curve, at least, I have been through before with other media, and because of that, I know there are some important questions I need to be asking myself at this stage in my journey. Do I want to learn anatomy, biomechanics, the physics of how animals interact with the world so I can sculpt in hyper-realistic style? Or do I want to learn to abstract the unique characters of my subjects to create a stylized result? I find both paths really fascinating, and so for now I'm trying to explore both. For this first guinea pig, I'm trying to push myself just a little bit towards realism. For the next couple piggies, I allow myself the opportunity to abstract them just a bit, creating something more towards semi-realistic. Soon I want to try my hand at true abstraction and see how many cute, super stylized critters I could make, though I think that is best saved for a future video. For the coat, I'm using a ball stylus tool and gently pressing and dragging it along the clay to create a sense of the hair texture. I'm paying close attention to my photo references to make note of the hair direction and flow. Any bits of hair that seem ruffled or cast dark shadows in the real animals, I duplicate by adding a little extra pressure to my tool, helping to find that character. It also adds some nice visual interest. I choose to bend the armature and lift the head on the second guinea pig to give it a playful pose. As I add bulk, I'm trying to exaggerate some of the shape, and it looks a bit terrifying. Trust the process. Struggling with the eyes, I found it best to just restart them. I think partly why they looked off was that I needed to correct the shape of the skull. Granted, this is my semi-realistic piggy, however, I still want people to recognize it as a guinea pig and not some other rodent, so anatomy still comes into play. That's better. The third guinea pig is my favorite breed, the Peruvian. I love seeing them in full coat, all groomed and displayed on a competitive show table because when they're not moving, it just looks like somebody's had a wig on a table. I create my general wig shape with thin layers of polymer clay and create the blob that is the top of the pig's head, then I give it a little haircut. I decided it might not read as a guinea pig sculpture if it was evenly groomed, so I cut away a part in the hair so I could reveal some of the face. With that roughed in, I start on the fun part, blocking in the hair locks. I really wanted to try the same hair sculpting technique I use with epoxy putty and see if that would work with polymer clay too. I draw out some lines as guides and then add basic noodle shapes to help define the high and low parts of the hair. That looks a bit silly though, once again, trust the process. I start drawing hairlines with the ball stylus tool, and at the same time I'm starting to blend in those noodle shapes. It's rough and I'm dragging up little blobs of clay, though it's starting to look like hair. Brushing off those blobs with a soft paintbrush really helps. A little bit of Gamsol solvent really helps get the last of the blobs and helps smoothen out my tool marks, creating a nice soft hair effect. A tiny bit goes a long way, and I only use what I need with good ventilation. The ball stylus returns to help add some extra detail I lost with the paintbrush. Just like when I'm sculpting an epoxy putty, going back and forth between smoothing with the brush and adding detail with the tool eventually helps get the look I want. Patience is key here. I was really struggling with the proportions of the face and chose to lengthen it so it matched the others, which I sort of regret because now that I have it, I feel it was cuter the first time. Well, you live and you learn. Time to bake them. I'm really happy with how these little cuties turned out. I think I have even more opportunities to push myself towards stylized results, and I think that's something I want to explore more as, like I said, for some reason it's unusually hard to wrap my brain around. That's probably an adventure best saved for another video, so for now I would thank you so much for watching, and I hope this brought a little joy today. Bye!